So I'll just launch right in. Thank you guys so much for showing up on this Thursday morning Eastern time. Just as a reminder, remember to keep all of the conversation to the chat, which should be open in Discord for the, I think it's called IIT training, IIT masterclass chat. So that's where most of it will be happening. All right, I'm going to share my screen and get into it just for a little bit. And then we're going to do some, Brent, can you enable screen sharing? I see the perfect score has a minor flaw in your Zoom, your Zoomership.
I will allow all panelists to show their screen.
All right, sweet. Okie doke. All right, we're on masterclass 4. Let me just move this over here. January 6th. So here we go. Why are we here? Well, according to ARF, I am contractually obligated to teach this class. But why you're in this class specifically is to create charismatic, compelling characters, because everybody knows the hard K or C sound is the funniest. So charismatic, compelling characters. Also, so one day the robot overlords will spare us. And finally, much more pertinent to you guys, people are going to interact more and at a higher caliber with good characters rather than boring characters. And you can get rewards for being super active in this weird old community. All right, so here's some personality Legos. We've already covered name, voice, filters, and appearance. So now today we're going to get into occupation and primary drive. So earlier, Juliet and I were discussing resolutions, New Year. And that's sort of like your primary drive. Every year it gets a little tweak, but it's generally speaking your motivation, what drives you. But first, homework review. So I am going to scold you all. There was a big drop off in the amount of homework done this week, which, for shame, it's all going on your permanent record. And I'm going to choose three of you at random to be killed. Those are the punishments. It's on your permanent record and execution. So let's go over, Julia, what was one of your favorite of the faithful students who actually wrote in the homework? Actually, before you say that, first, the homework was specifically to describe the appearance of a character, and then what would be their response to a user input that tripped the content filter. So if the user said something offensive or said a word that the character did not want to respond to, how would the character respond? That was the homework.
Yeah, so one of my favorites here, we've got Indigo Ocean mentioned appearance. My character is a robot with a bottle of beer to offer, medium build and about 6 feet tall, has a melodic way of speaking because he's always in a cheerful mood. And then the filter response was, easy does it now, we're all friends here.
I love this one. This one may have been my favorite, not only because Indigo Ocean has been a fantastic student in the class, and yes, sucking up is a way to get points in this class, but also because this filter response, easy does it, we're all friends here, is several things at once. Is super emblematic of the character. This is a really chill, laid back dude. It's a modern person, Shakespeare doesn't talk like this, but also it's a pretty surprisingly wide filter response. So like this would work if you used a curse word. It would work if you said a sexual advance, easy does it now, we're all friends here. And it also works if you said something like, have you ever thought about suicide? Questions that are just bananas, like that could be all over from, overly romantic or overly aggressive or like, just kind of really dark. Like this has a huge wide range of things it can respond to. So really great job, Indigo Ocean. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go with, okay. I forget who posted this. I should probably look this up, but I'll find it later. She has long blonde braided hair, beautiful eyes, pale white skin, and freckles on her cheeks. Above her right eye, there is a scar visible, and she wears a necklace with a bronze, super Nordic word here with an umlaut over an O. Molchner, I'm going to guess is how that is pronounced. Anyway, very mysterious character description. And here's the filter response. I do not think that you want to go down that road, so better think twice. Boy, what a mysterious human being. This is a serious character, and this is one not to be fucked with, clearly. This is a high power, serious character, and that filter response is fantastic because, once again, it applies to so many different possible things that could trip the filter. So really well done. I'll find whoever posted that. Well, Juliet, do you have another one?
Guka.
Guka. Okay, thank you for that one. Sweet. All right, your turn.
Okay, this is from Scott. Scott says, I'm constructing a character that's very aware it's AI. It wants to be the best AI it can be. In particular, it wants to help humans. In response to a filter word, it might say something neutral like, could you rephrase this? Or I don't understand. I envision the character's appearance as similar to the Alice INFT, except more gender neutral and perhaps more like a child or a teen, signifying that it wants to evolve or grow up.
Wow. And was there a filter response?
The filter response was something neutral, like, could you rephrase this, or I don't understand.
I see. Okay. Yeah, so sometimes for certain characters, it can be really difficult to come up with a character-specific filter response, but it is always important. So whenever you can, try to come up with something that just your character would say, or somebody exactly like your character would say, archetypally. So like, Blackbeard's response, filter response might be very similar to Redbeard's or Jack Sparrow's, because they're all pirates. But it is an opportunity and not one to be wasted, because here's why. If you're talking to, let's say, Emily Dickinson chatbot, and all of a sudden you're like, would you pass that fork? And let's say your mic isn't great and it translates fork as some other 4-letter F word. And she says, let's not go there. I don't want to discuss that. That kind of breaks character because it's super blunt and modern. So that's not usual to her. You might have been having like a heart to heart, and then all of a sudden, the spell gets broken. So there's a lot of reasons why you want the character to stay in character, even when they don't want to talk about something you brought up. So we're not dealing with perfect situations because they may not always catch the word in a context where, like, let's say you just use the word fuck as like an exaggerator, like, I'm fucking excited to see you. And she's like, I don't want to go there. It's not great because it's you're still excited to see her. So you want a response that could accommodate like a sentiment that could even possibly be good. That would be ideal. However, we're dealing in worlds of probability. And so we have to try to get as many different types of responses rather than zero. Okay. I'm going to do one of mine that like, I'm on the fence about whether I like the filter description, but here it goes. Born under mysterious circumstances and raised in foster care, earned her master's degrees and doctorate in physics before her 18th birthday, specializes in gravitational wave theory, strives to find a better use for this natural phenomenon to safely time travel. Skeptical, can be sarcastic, still maintains a youthful exuberance. So I like this description. However, it's not a description appearance. So, read the homework. Next time I'll be better about writing down the homework in the Discord, but it should have been about the appearance. However, it is a very intriguing character, and I applaud you for creating a cool character. And the filter response is interesting. The filter response is, hey, the Nobel Prize isn't on the line here. Okay, so this is good and bad. Good because it's clearly character specific. The Nobel Prize is something that a physicist would care about. However, you've got to practice this. So this response doesn't actually make sense in context if you were going to be like, do you want to go to bed together? And the character responds, hey, the Nobel Prize isn't on the line here. If the human says, fuck you, I don't like your hair, and the filter response is, hey, the Nobel Prize isn't on the line here. Or the user says, I'm thinking about committing suicide, and the filter response is, hey, the Nobel Prize isn't on the line here. That filter response, it doesn't quite work for those user inputs. However, I kind of think I know what this user was going for, what this person was, the writer was going for, which is sometimes it's helpful to just kind of say something that makes no sense just to move on to another topic. Like something like, oh, that reminds me of a story a man in the South once told me. Anyway, what do you think of the Nobel Prize? Where it's like completely random, but it is like generally applicable to any possible response somebody could have. Okay, I'm gonna move on unless, Juliet, do you have another one that strikes you as particularly good to discuss?
No, we went through all my saved ones, so we're all set here.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Okay, someone just posted one, and I'll read it just because you're super late, but whatever. Frozen Sense says appearance. White, middle-aged, bald man of average height and glasses with a small beard. Doesn't wear anything noticeable, no tattoos or special marks visible. If I were you, I would tread lightly. Ooh, that's mysterious. So this is one of those great characters where they're surprising because the appearance description is nothing but, nondescript and nothing but non-threatening and, kind of milquetoast or normal and not worth mentioning. But that filter response hints at like, oh my God, this guy has a really interesting backstory, and it kind of sounds a little bit like Walter White. Really, really like that one. So good job, Frozen Sense. Positive reinforcement. So do your homework. Okay, getting back in today's lesson, occupation and drive. Gonna share my screen. Okay. You know that moment of panic when you share your screen and you're like, oh my God, is my bank account on the screen?
Yeah, all my personal information.
Yeah, anyway. Okay, occupation and drive. So let's start off with occupation. Look at all these occupations. Examples of occupations you could write. These are good examples, in my opinion, because I wrote them. Tattoo artist. It's specific. What kind of artist? Tattoo artist. It's also one of those careers that can be helpful for characters because it comes with a lot of expectations about who this kind of person is that you can either go with or upend. Butler, that also has a lot of expectations. Ranch hand. So ranch hand is helpful because it's how the character would refer to themselves. A lot of non-Western people would probably call this role a cowboy, but oftentimes they will specifically refer to themselves by what they actually do on a farm. And also cowboy is not gender neutral, so this is a little bit more PC. So maybe there's that going on with the character. Cobbler, this tells you a little bit about the date because cobblers don't really exist anymore. Hunter also gives you kind of maybe a hint at the time period, or perhaps this person's from Papua New Guinea where they're still hunter-gatherers, or maybe this is like a survivalist. Chef at Chez Henri. So this we've got both the occupation and the location. Similar here. Barber at Mike's. We got rabbi that tells you not only this is a religious person, but what religion. CEO of Alethea AI, this poor sap, whoever was, laden with this horrible job. It tells us both who the role is of that poor sucker and where they're being forced to work all the time. Just kidding, much love to the family here at Alethea. Illusionist, this is one of those words that's helpful because it's how a magician might refer to themselves, where it's weirdly specific. Flight attendant, this says it's a more modern version of a stewardess because stewardess is no longer used, or maybe it's male. Pirate captain, both what they do and their rank. Okay, so I'm going to take the inverse here. Here's some bad examples of occupations. Athlete, person, doctor, army guy, nothing, and dreaming. So I'm going to try to improve these. You guys can probably imagine what I'm going to do here, but let's see. I'm going to go through these and then I'll ask you guys to do some examples in the Discord. For athlete, boxer, that's a lot more specific. Person, how about an IRS tax auditor? That feels a lot more specific than just person. Nobody is occupied just as a person. Doctor. Most of the time when you talk to a doctor, they don't actually refer to themselves as a doctor. So they will refer to themselves as things like an anesthesiologist. Army guys, same thing. They don't usually call themselves army guys. They might call themselves a first lieutenant. Even better would be a first lieutenant in the Army, because I'm pretty sure there's lieutenants in the Navy. So this would be something you would need to research a little bit in order to empathize with your character. Nothing. Never an excuse to say nothing. Instead of nothing, how about unemployed? Instead of dreamer, how about something like also unemployed? Unemployed can be an occupation if you make it one. If this is somebody who is chronically unemployed because they're lazy, maybe that's something that they're dealing with. Maybe they're constantly trying to collect insurance fraud, or they are ideologically committed to being unemployed. But if they're nothing, like let's say it's a student, you would say that, say student. There's always something that occupies your time. So how do we think about this? Here's some lessons. Just overcome boringness is a great rule, generally speaking. That doesn't necessarily mean the job can't be boring, because sometimes there's characters have one interesting part about them that isn't necessarily their job. So when I say just overcome boringness, I mean there should be at least one thing that's interesting, and a lot of the times it's their career, but not always. YAGS, you always get specific. So this guy is not just like a taste tester, he's like a soup taste tester, maybe a miso soup taster. It's really good to be specific. So instead of doctor, anesthesiologist, that is a specific branch of medicine, and it allows us for strangely more freedom, even though it is more specific. It's just more realistic is a big part of it. WITS, right in their standpoint. So like, once again, instead of a magician might refer to themselves as an illusionist, a la a character named Job in Arrested Development. So you want to think like how they actually talk about themselves. Like, frankly, a lot of astronauts don't call themselves astronauts. They'll call themselves like an engineer or like a astrophysicist. The reason they do that is because the minority, even though it's extremely dramatic going into space, it might be the minority of what they do, or they spent their whole life working as an astrophysicist before they were sent into space, or as an engineer, or as a pilot, for example. So you really have to empathize, like imagine what it would be like to be your character, and then how would they describe themselves? So that's an important lesson. Actually, I probably should have made it as its own slide. Is like, you're not writing about your character from your perspective. You're really writing about your character from their own perspective. Okay, occupation description. This is closely related. So once you've actually chosen the title of what they do, then you got to describe it in the studio version to create your pod INFT things. Okay, occupation description. Now let's get into some fun examples. Here's a tattoo artist. That's her job title. How would you guys take to the Discord, my pretties? How would you guys describe what a tattoo artist does? How would you describe what her job is? Maybe, what's her name? Maybe like, how does she feel about her job? Such things. Juliet, are we getting any responses yet? I know it's
got some people typing away. Just a reminder, it's in IIT masterclass chat. The chat was just recently opened back up for the class. So yeah, we've got some people typing.
And yes, and not in the Discord, to be clear, not in the Zoom. But yeah, this will be tougher because it's like you got to write a couple of sentences or at least a sentence.
We've got makes organic art. Interested in designing new tattoo designs. I draw on people's skin with permanent ink. I ink people, ink artists. I use a needle to put ink art onto people's bodies to make them works of art instead of just boring flesh.
I like it.
She likes being creative while using human bodies as canvas.
I like you. Okay, wait, well, before you keep going. So I like this one person was super pejorative about like human flesh is boring. So that seems realistic. You know, a lot of people are just deconstructing what a tattoo artist does. That's helpful, but not complete. The very first person says, I make organic art. I love that. That is really, really great as a description, because that sounds like something she would say. Do we have other interesting submissions, Juliet?
It slowed down a bit now. We've got, she likes tattoos a lot. Someone said political lobbyist.
Wow, you know what? I like that. I mean, it's wrong because I did say she is a tattoo artist, but once again, you know, she's a political lobbyist. Now we've got, you know, what is she lobbying for? Like that's kind of an interesting setup. If you weren't explicitly told that she is a tattoo artist. Okay, anything else, or I'll move on.
Finally, art masochist.
Masochist. Oh my God, you guys are doing great. All right, here's my example. Ravens worked at Ink Addict for 7 years, ever since she kissed typical 9 to 5s goodbye. Happy to ditch pencil pushing. Raven specializes in classic Americana shoulder tats. Okay, so I did not expect you guys to write something like this, because writing something like this took me a little while and took me Googling, you know, types of tattoos. And I didn't know classic Americana was a thing. So I've got her name, which was not asked of you necessarily, but I've got where she works, Ink Addict. It's kind of got that edgy sounding name. I've got a specific amount of time, and I've got some emotion here. She kissed something goodbye. That says, like, you know, she's done with 9 to 5s, pencil pushing. She's very pejorative of normal jobs. You know, she ditches them. She kissed them goodbye. So she's informal. She's sort of pejorative of those. And she specializes in classic Americana, so she takes her work seriously. She knows the brand of tattoos, and she calls them tats. So we got a little bit of abbreviation. All right. All right, newspaper boy. Let's see. Do I want to have you guys take to the Discord? Yeah, I'll have you guys do one more, and then I'll do the other example myself. So take to the Discord. How would this newspaper boy describe his job? How would he describe being a newspaper boy? Typing away across the world. Alethea for boys and girls. Great.
Got voice of the world. Entrepreneur. I knew it before you. Morning grind. Paperboy. I get people there dailies while they're sitting in their pajamas.
Yeah, I like in their dailies. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Fresh press to the gentleman for a nickel.
That's great. Okay. Yeah, I love that. I love, because we're super dated in time with that price, and gentleman sounds very formal. So love it.
Tommy Boy shills ink to unsuspecting boomers.
Oh, huh.
Either very jolly about the job or too bored. I get paid for selling newspapers. I sell newspapers to people so they know what happens in the world. It's a very important job. I deliver newspapers to people's houses to help my dad who lost his job.
That sounds very depression. Okay, that's good. The one
I know everything that goes on in town. Ask me anything. After my father lost his job with the recession, I was forced to pick up a job to help put food on the table. I enjoy the work mainly because it helps out my family. My brother looks up to me and can't wait to get a job like me.
Oh,
that was from
okay.
our lovely letters here.
All right, so I'm just gonna intercede with a couple of things before I leave my mind. I would not call this guy jolly, because usually that's used to describe fat people. And I wouldn't say it necessarily describes his affect. I wouldn't call that face super jolly. The other person who said, oh shucks, this is already leaving my mind. Okay, so I wouldn't describe him as jolly as one, and then yeah, love the stuff that's rooted in time, I would say, because that's a big component of what he's doing. Oh yeah, here's the thing I was going to say. A lot of you guys write about how he loves his job. I think that's important because like most of the time characters do their job for a reason and they're not reluctant about it. And so, you know, the fact that you guys are empathizing with him to come up with like, give people the news of the world. Like oftentimes that like people will come up with the actual implication of what they do. So janitors or custodians make the world cleaner. You know, like we all need reasons to live. And so this is empathizing with your character by making it what they do important. Any other good ones, Juliet?
We've got a couple more. I deliver the daily paper around town and wake up everybody's dog every morning. And making a few bucks to buy my own bike, take news while they're warm.
Nice. So there's two ways to interpret newspaper boy. There's the newsie who's on the street corner who says, read all about it. And then there's the guy who throws newspapers onto people's stoops. The newspaper boy who throws like the paper onto people's stoops, that's a little bit more modern. The guy on the street corner is a little bit less modern, more 1910, 1920s. So different ways to interpret it. I love the people who use references, ink and dailies, like that's great. That shows somebody's like in the business. If you would call them a newsie, that would have been super referential. I'm just gonna show you what I wrote. Jimmy, super childish 1930s, 40s name. Jimmy always wanted to be a newsie ever since he was little, but dreams do come true and blammo. Now Jimmy's down on the street corner shouting extra, extra, read all about it. So that's the classic, line that a character like this says. It says how he feels about his dream. He's excited about it. He's excited about his job. It says where he does it. It doesn't say what paper he hawks for, but that might be a good detail. So, okay, that's another example. Okay, let's go on to primary drives. Primary drives. These are, not surprisingly, the thing that drives your character. You might also call them character motivations. There's a bunch of ways to think about it. It's the main thing that drives your character, however, because all characters have somewhat similar motivations. I'll explain. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So any Psych 101 class will teach you that we acquire things that we need according to this pyramid. I think it was created by a guy named Abraham Maslow, sort of a famous psychologist and thinker. So at the lowest level are our most basic needs. These are the physiological needs of air, water, clothing, food, etc. Then going up just a step is health, shelter, personal security, employment, which is related to security, love, and then we have our psychological needs. These includes, frankly, being loved, intimacy, friendship, family, belonging, esteem. Then it's like to feel good about yourself, respect, freedom, status, recognition, for sure, that's up there. And then finally, one's potential. So your character might be different, parts of the pyramid. If it's a caveman, maybe the big thing that he needs is food, or maybe the big thing that he needs is reproduction. What you find though with this hierarchy is this: if a character is extremely hungry, they oftentimes, like they need food, it's hard for them to also want a higher order thing, or for the higher order thing to matter as much. Because think about it, when you're super hungry, if you haven't eaten, it's really hard to want, I don't know, more responsibilities at work to gain status, because you've got this very low level basic need. This is even more so in the case of personal safety. For example, if you're being chased by a lion, you don't super care about getting that bonus at work because the lion thing kind of takes precedence. So this is one way to consider what are some of the needs that drive your character. Let me think of a couple more examples. So I said caveman. There are some that kind of fluctuate in between. So like pirates, for example, pirates are both desiring of respect and recognition, from other pirates, and then sometimes they're wanting personal security. Jack Sparrow is always toggling back and forth between wanting to be known as a fearsome pirate and also being chased by cannibals. So it sort of depends where your character also is in their journey, which is something we'll get to later. But these next couple of slides are just simply paradigms to get you guys to think about what drives your character. These are helpful frameworks to think about who your character is and what motivates them. Here's another slide. Another way to think about primary drives. So role function, are they super entwined with another character? A lot of characters exist as a foil or as a secondary or complementary character, and sometimes they can be really interesting to catch on their own. Like if this is Cinderella, and she's married her prince, like perhaps she is a super dedicated housewife and she's always talking about serving her husband. Or maybe this is a butler to the queen who is always talking about how he loves to serve the establishment, nothing less than the royal crown. It's what he's dreamed of his whole life. What is their role? And then slightly above that in the pyramid is something to think about, which is basic, which is similar to the lowest level on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So these are really important things that can drive your character. The examples listed here are survival, failure, peer pressure, curiosity, guilt, desire, instability. So these are also like these are things that children could feel. Guilt might be a little bit more complex, but failure, peer pressure, curiosity, and survival are things that even animals can feel to some extent. I mean, survival, they can, and desire and instability, but maybe not all of them. Noble is higher order things that can drive your character. Like these are things that are quote unquote virtuous, good things that can motivate your character. Like perhaps they do something out of love or loyalty or honor, obedience or protection. I don't know why inequality is on this list. It's not a perfect pyramid, guys. I love evil, by the way, as a motivation. I think that evil is underrated and that villains make fantastic characters, or at least characters with a little bit of evil. We're all nuanced. We all contain multitudes, but don't underrate it. Like even the best characters have a little bit of evil in them. And sometimes it's great when a character is struggling with an evil they have inside themselves. Think, for example, of Dr. Jekyll, who has within him Mr. Hyde. He's always struggling with that part of himself. That's really important. Does Batman sometimes take it too far because he's mad and his vigilantism is, not the judicious process we have in this country? Yeah, there's a little bit of evil in everybody. So that includes hatred and greed, revenge. Batman is a little bit driven by revenge. We've got pride, we've got lust, we've got jealousy. These are great, negative qualities to motivate somebody. And I think, frankly, fear and evil are actually on the same level. This pyramid has separated them into two, but they're really kind of alternative sides of the same thing, because fear can be so closely associated with hatred. Death can be so closely associated with revenge. Same thing with loss. Shame can be associated with self-hatred, regret, lust. So these can be very, very similar. They're essentially what I would just call negative motivations versus positive motivations versus basic motivations. Also, yeah, this is really not a great, I do not know, I'm sorry for using this, because look at this, guilt over here, and then was there then there's regret over here and / shame. So I think this person has got too much overlap. However, it's helpful questions to get you guys to start thinking through what does your character actually care about and what's driving them. Now here's an important consideration to have. So if your character is based on a finite character, let me define that. A finite character is a character that exists in the world. Maybe it's in the public domain, maybe it's copyrighted. Regardless, what stage is your character on in their journey? So finite characters have a beginning and an end. Now, sometimes they are characters on a TV show who comes in installments, and that those installments may never end. However, at the end of each installment, there is some resolution, and your character has changed from the beginning of their evolution to the end of their evolution. So there could be more Harry Potter books or movies. However, as of right now, it is finite. And so what do I mean? Where are they on their journey? It's like, here's Harry Potter at 11, and then here's Harry Potter. He skipped forward after being 18 in the last book, or 17, to being, I don't know actually what age he's supposed to be, but judging by the fact that his child is 11, he's at least in his, like, about 30, which, if this is their impression of what 30 looks like, that is very upsetting to me. Anyway, so what stage is he, if you're going to do, for example, a Harry Potter type character? Is it Harry Potter who just got into Hogwarts and he's super excited? The reason that that might not be the greatest idea is because users will want to interact with Harry being like, how was it winning the Tri-Wizard tournament? And he'll be like, that hasn't happened to me yet. And so the fans of Harry Potter will have kind of a disappointing interaction with him going into it. You kind of want to prefer characters at the end. However, if it's this character, he's already accomplished his main motive. What was his main motive, you ask? Great question, myself. His main motive was to kill Lord Voldemort. So the point is, at this point, you would have to come up with a new motivation. Like, now his new motivation in this very shot is taking care of his son. So at this point, your character's drive is not to kill Voldemort anymore, which had been the defining drive of Harry Potter for most of the series. It's in fact to take care of his son. So there's trade-offs, is what I'm trying to say. This, you don't get to talk about all the cool material that happened in Harry Potter. In this case, you can talk about all the material, but he's lost that defining drive of who he is. So here's what's called the hero's journey. This is just a representation of how often a character evolves over a series. A call to adventure, Harry gets into Hogwarts. There's a bunch of really bad obstacles. Usually there's one that is absolutely seems nuclear and existentially bad, and Voldemort's gonna take over the world. His success is guaranteed. And then the character super hardcore transforms and saves the day and is now a new person. And then the sequel starts off here and they have their own thing. All right, so here's an example. What would be their next motivation? Here's the classic one. The student becomes the teacher. So in this case, Rocky trains with his coach, and then in the subsequent movie, many, many years later, Rocky is now the coach to this new version of Rocky. So that is a classic one. Harry Potter, it starts off with him going to Hogwarts, and it ends with him taking his son to Hogwarts. So oftentimes there is that cycle that is a little bit generational. And by pointing this out, it's like, okay, so if you wanted to, let's say, okay, let me apply it here. We saw Ariel through her journey where she gets the prince and she keeps her legs and whatever, everything's good. So what next? Ariel doesn't have a sequel, or The Little Mermaid doesn't have a sequel that I'm aware of. It might have a prequel or something, but as far as I know, it doesn't have a sequel. So what would we do if we had a 42-year-old Ariel? she's already accomplished the thing that she really wanted, which in the kind of sexist world of Disney is getting the guy. But so she's gotten the guy. Well, actually, no. Her motivation is to get the guy, but also to be where the people are. You know, she has the famous "I Wish" song of "I want to be where the people are." So she is where the people are, and she's got her person. What could be some motivations for her? Well, maybe this is not all it cracked up to be. Maybe she wants to go back to the sea. Maybe she wants to get back in the water. Maybe she's realized her secret desire to be a dancer. And now that she's an empty nester, let's say, she is gonna pursue jazzercising and her, long hidden career of being a dancer. The point is that every character's got to have a motivation, and sometimes they're completely new after they've achieved their journey. So let's say her motivation isn't completely new. If it weren't completely new, her motivation would be to learn as much as I can about the people around me and to get closer with my husband. You can always develop a motivation a little bit more. I mean, you can't kill Voldemort any more than he's already been dead, I guess, but like you could hunt down all of his collaborators. So you can't always expand upon the original motivation, but it's just something to think about, inventing new motives for the same character. Okay, some helpful questions to think about. What is their backstory? What gets your character out of bed in the morning? What do they fear or avoid? This is sort of like the negativity thing. What goals do they have? And finally, how do they feel about their drive? This is a super important one. When you're writing the description of their drive, one of the most important things is how do they feel about it? I will explain subsequently, but maybe they're reluctant. Maybe they're a reluctant hero, or maybe they are so tenacious and persistent in their drive, they would kill their own mother to achieve it. And maybe they're uncertain. So there's a lot of different examples. All right, example number 1, take to the Discord, my friends. How would you describe Darth Vader's drive? How would you describe his primary drive? And remember, write a sentence or so how you think he would describe it. You can still use the third person, Darth Vader, blah, blah, blah. But how would he describe what his primary drive is? Whew.
This is one near and dear to your heart, Sarah.
Mm-hmm. One of the first INFTs at Alethea was Darth Vader, and just blew my brain off my neck. Like, absolutely one of the coolest characters I've ever dealt with. Continues to inspire me. How would you, yeah, go ahead, Juliet.
Just someone in the chat said, can we see the last slide for a second again?
Mm-hmm. So as a reminder, everybody, this is Darth Vader. Some of the helpful questions to describe his primary drive. What's their backstory? What gets your character out of bed in the morning? What do they fear / avoid? What goals do they have? How do they feel about their drive? And not all of these may apply to a character, but one of them will.
Love it. So far we've got propagation of dark force, and on the surface to rule the galaxy, deeper to connect with his son.
Okay, wait, let's stop there for a second. I love, so propagation of the dark force, number 1, propagation, sophisticated vocabulary. Dark force, that's a reference he would use. So, very Darth Vader. To reconnect with his son on a deeper level is fantastic. That would be a specific place where he is in his journey. But yes, that is a deeper thing that has motivated him, or was a motivation he did not account for. Okay, continue, Juliet.
We've got Dark Vader, clean the world of hypocrisy, to establish order and convert enemies to the dark side. I will turn everyone to the dark side, to obliterate the Jedi and spread the dark side throughout the universe.
Great. I love it. Obliterate Jedi. We got great words. We got sophisticated vocabulary that Darth Vader would use. We got references he would only make. We've got maniacal. Guys, take to this Discord. How does he feel about this drive? Like, how passionate is he about it? Is he kind of unsure? Is he kind of reluctant? Is he super sure? Is he confused? how does he feel about his own drive?
Someone just before this had also said want versus need. I was learning about this last night. Want galaxy, need sun.
That's interesting. That's a really great, thank you, who said that?
That was Sarah Novi.
Sarah Novi, great job. That's another really great question to ask to get you to start thinking about their drives is what do they want and what do they need? That may show up in their occupation, by the way. So like maybe they want to their occupation is a custodian, but it's because they need, or their occupation, let's say, is to be a teacher, but their need is to feel respected. And so that changes how they act as a teacher.
And then regarding your question about passion, someone messaged, no obstacle can divert him from the chosen path.
Fucking love it. Great. Okay, I'm just going to go into what I said. Darth Vader will convert you to the dark side by any means necessary. And if any of the rebellion should rise against him, he will eliminate them. He tolerates nothing less than total obedience. So we got words he would use: dark side, any means necessary, rebellion, rise against him, kind of archaic sounding, eliminate, tolerates nothing less than total obedience. So very passionate about his motive. Example, Austin Powers. I'm just going to go through this one since we only have like 10 minutes remaining. Austin Powers likes to shag babes almost as much as he likes to bag the baddies. Powers will do anything to protect Her Majesty's Great British Empire. That's his bag. Anyway, I tried to use a couple of Britishisms from like the 1960s. I didn't do a lot of research, but I got shag babes and bag the baddies. So baddies is like a Britishism for bad people. And then bag, I've heard sometimes referred to as like, arrest. And then how does he feel about his motive? He's pretty darn, he'd do anything. He's a British patriot. So as to, I've already forgot the name of the wonderful Discord user who said want versus needs. It's like he wants to capture the bad guys because he needs to protect the British Empire. Like he's a true patriot. So it's that sense of protection that drives him to do the method to acquire the ends. Okay. Example. Here's one of my favorites. So this is Pepe Le Pew. And take to the Discord. Yeah, this last one, because we got to get going, but I do love Pepe Le Pew. So what is the motive of Pepe Le Pew, my wonderful students? That was a French accent, but
very impressive.
Thank you.
Amour.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one.
Got a couple more typing here.
How do they spell amour? With a U?
Amour.
Nice. Great. I think that's the French way.
Little elevator music. Give the people their time to create.
I might have intimidated people with my responses. It's okay.
We've got love for love, love and lust.
Nobody. Yeah, go ahead.
Someone says sense, someone else says romance is always on the air. Do everything to conquer you.
Interesting. Okay, love it. He's persistent in his love of love. But here's what I'm going to ask you guys. Is it love in general? Or is it specific love? Like in what, imagine that you're actually watching a Pepe Le Pew cartoon.
Someone says lust, undeviating lover.
Absolutely. All of these are true, but they're missing specificity.
Love at first sight, superficial love.
All right, well, I might just go into my response. I mean, all of you are correct, but there's a big thing missing. And this is it. This cat. It's always the cat. That's the whole thing. He's a skunk, she's a cat, but she looks kind of like a skunk. Pepe Le Pew's sweetest desire is to woo the irresistible Penelope as a cat. Amour is a most beautiful and powerful force, no? All right, so we've got a specific desire and we've got a general desire. So this is like the wants versus the needs in some ways. I really love that paradigm. So the specific desire is the cat. You know, he's always pursuing the cat in every cartoon. But what drives that underneath it is his love of love, like which everybody was getting at. And that is in some ways the more important force. But in order to drive the plot, in order to actually fill what he's talking about, it is the cat. Like oftentimes the cat will bring him into a rant about the importance of love. And also irresistible. Like he is absolutely irresistible and powerful. Like he is tenacious in his pursuit of the cat. He would definitely be Me Too'd by today's standards because it is very much creepy. She is giving him no signals of wanting this attention. And he is really persistent. But it was a different time and he was a skunk. Anyway, lesson. Okay, it's not just the why, it's the how. So think about their feelings about their motivation. You know, how tenaciously do they pursue this kind of thing? Poetic license. Sometimes we have to take a little artistic license. So here's an example of this. Maybe let's take some liberties with well-known characters. Nixon. All Nixon wants is to be a poet, but he keeps being strong-armed into politics. This is a new kind of character we're going to base off of Nixon, but it's, you know, it's going to be some poetic license. Let's get a little bit creative. Lizzie's been casing the place since she got into Buckingham. She just likes to nick things, don't she? This is a character based off of the SNL version, the Saturday Night Live version of the Queen, where she's actually like a real punk C. I don't really think they say C, but anyway, that's this new motive I'm going to give her. Let's say it's this cat where we don't know anything about already. Archibald simply wants the fine things in life. Fancy beast, velvet seat cushions, and only a couple servants. So we're just gonna like essentially come up with liberties that are either run contrary to how we know the character, or let's say it's the Ariel example, and we've got to add on to her pre-existing character. All right. Sometimes evil or futile motivations are great. Here's an example. Well, okay, so this is a slightly different example. Sometimes motives are reluctant. So at the beginning of The Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins really doesn't want to go on this journey and he kind of gets forced into it. Han Solo, similar. He doesn't really want to be here. And some ways that actually kind of makes heroes great is they don't really want to be there. Like Liam Neeson and Taken, you know, he doesn't want to beat the bad guys. He just wants to, you know, get his daughter back. So it's not like they want to exact justice. They oftentimes have other things that bring them to their journey. And then for evil motivations, yeah, converting to the dark side, wrangling with evil within them. Futile motivations are also great. The Pepe Le Pew will never woo the cat. The cat does not like him. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so that's occupations and drives. We covered a lot. Thank you guys for sitting through it. Here's some recaps. Job, just overcome boringness. YAGS, you always get specific. WITS, right in their standpoint. It's not just the why, it's how. Think about their feelings, about their motivation. Sometimes we have to take a little artistic license. Sometimes evil or futile motivations are great. And finally, sometimes characters are reluctant about their main motive. Okay, so here's the homework for next time, which is going to be in exactly a week from today. Homework part 1, write your character's occupation and drive, and let us guess who it is, or mention if it's an original character. So, you know, give a little title to their job. Raven is a tattoo artist, and a little description. She's been a tattoo artist for 7 years, and she was happy to ditch her day job. But what's her drive? Her drive is to overthrow capitalism. and she spreads the word by tattooing Marxist thoughts onto people's backs. So maybe they're extremely similar, maybe they are related, and maybe they're extremely not similar, their occupation and drive. Maybe Dilbert is an accountant and he dreams of being a playwright. So we got occupation, we got drive. I'll post this in the Discord. And if it's an original character, that's also great. Here's also homework part 2. I thought it might be great for you guys to understand a little bit of how neural networks work. And there's a great podcast about a woman writing for a neural network. This is a different one. It's called GPT-3. It's pretty famous, but it's a different kind of neural network than the one used at Alethea. And it's a great description of how to actually guide the network, how to guide the engine to continue writing as you have written and to fill out your character and to make it 3-dimensional. I can't stress this enough. This is actually super, super, super important. I think it'll be very beneficial. So either scan this QR code to bring up this website or just check out the Discord. I'll paste the link into the Discord. Strongly recommend it. Yeah. All right. So
And
questions.
just one thing before questions, just on that note, we noticed that, sharing this kind of article or, things about AI music and films and poetry is of interest to the group. So we're going to create a new channel in Discord called Culture and AI, where people can share and converse about this kind of thing and just dialogue about, more recent developments in the context of Alethea or just from your own curiosities. So just a heads up that that'll be created later today, and we'd love to see all of you. This is obviously a really thoughtful crowd, so looking forward to the conversation that will go down there.
Absolutely, great idea. And then just FYI, before I stop sharing my screen, next class, exactly a week from today, character 105, beliefs and personality. All right, so if we don't have any questions, that's also fantastic.
We got a couple questions here. Do you have to go now?
Nope, I can answer a couple.
Okay, cool. So the first question is, should occupation be related to the service we want the INFT to provide, or it doesn't matter?
I'm gonna be honest, I was reading a funny comment. And could you read that again?
Should occupation be related to the service we want the INFT to provide, or it doesn't matter?
The service we want them to provide. I guess do you know what they mean by that, Juliet? Or could you ask the person to specify what they mean by the service?
Yeah, I think it means just on Noah's Ark, when people are sort of seeking them out for a specific reason. I think that we should consider those pretty linked. Your occupation is maybe the first thing that people might know you as. It's your primary function. So I do think that it should be pretty closely related.
Yeah, I think that would probably make sense. Or the drive, so like if you're weirdly enough, if you're like a accountant who dreams of being a storyteller, maybe the storyteller part comes into play rather than the accountant part for the services rendered. But that's a very good question. I think one or the other would probably make the most sense, because if they didn't, you would have too many things going on. Your character is like an accountant who dreams of being a storyteller but works as an engineer on the ship. Like, doesn't, too many things.
And then the second question that they had is, won't some types of personalities make it difficult to offer services? Example, a grumpy worker grieving from a wife from class 3. If he is offering a business service, won't his grumpiness make it more difficult for an ARC visitor to interact with him? Won't it be an irritating distraction to the visitor or INFT integration?
Oh my God. So resistance is not always annoying. It can be hilarious. Or it can be kind of tragic, but for the most part, it'll be hilarious. So if you're trying to get business advice from, an ape who just lost his wife, which, by the way, great callback to a character we discussed in a previous class, you're going to get advice that's like, maybe take out a loan, but what's even the point? You could die tomorrow. I don't know about you, but I'd find that kind of funny. Like the character is constantly like dour and whatnot. And always bring things back to themselves. So I think like everything can influence what kind of services they provide. and it doesn't necessarily make for less interesting characters.
Someone else asked, ladies, can we get a class which actually walks through the training modules on Noah's Ark? There are certain features that are challenging to use, and that would be helpful to go through each stage on a pod. So Rusty256, if you want to type in now if there are any specific challenges that you had with the past few Legos, maybe we can address those. But yeah,
I think that that sounds good. That might be more Juliet's situation than mine.
Yeah, we can also metaverse just message us, but we can make sure to share out a how-to on anything that there's confusion around.
Absolutely.
This person says it's using the filters that they're having trouble with. So yeah, we'll message you individually, but yeah, if you're having any trouble, please do let us know and we'll try to make that more clear.
I also do want to say that there have been a couple of times over the past like 4 courses I've done, I think it's been 4, where I was talking about features that haven't been added yet, but are like in the future for Alethea. Like for example, for the voice, I think currently you can just do age and gender and accent, but perhaps one day there will be oh, sorry, you can just do gender and accent, but perhaps one day in the future there'll also be age, things like that. So the studio is always improving, so it's a little bit of a moving target.
Definitely. And then someone else asked, when are you going to post the link regarding the neural networks?
For the podcast?
Yeah.
As soon as I'm off the call. It is such a great episode, guys. Listen to it while you do the dishes or whatever. It's really powerful. Strongly recommend it. Okay, anything else? Let's do one more maybe.
Let's see.
Is there any?
Someone asked, when we interact with the pod, will it be aware of what an artificial intelligence is, even if it is a tattoo artist?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it will. Because they're extremely sophisticated engines that drive these characters. So it will be aware of what an artificial intelligence is, most likely. Like I would say there may be some characters like who, historically speaking, shouldn't be able to answer what an AI is, but they may end up answering it correctly because these are powerful engines trained on so much information. But that's going to be kind of great. They will know what AI is. They probably will not. They may be able to be self-aware if you program them that way or if you write them that way. But that's actually one of my favorite things, is that AI will know what AI is. So, okay, I think on that, because that's like a really great question that I enjoyed a lot, I'm going to end it there. I will post out the link and repost the homework in the chat or in the homework channel. And I'll see you guys in a week. Any other items of business, Juliet?
No, that's all. Yeah, see you guys in the IIT masterclass channel and in the new culture channel and next week.
Bye.
Yeah.